All right, welcome to Startup Grind.
Hi, my name is Saga. I work as project manager in a corporate environment. We are doing service for power plants. I heard about Startup Grind and I want to learn what do startups do different from the corporate world. So this is very good exposure for me and I'm looking forward for this event.
My name is Amini. I'm a student, also work part-time in venture capital. I'm here to sit down and learn from entrepreneurs, find potential investments, and
Today's event, we have a very special lady. She's the founder of 88 Business Collective, which is a women-only accelerator. And at the last demo day, she got all the entrepreneurs who pitched. They got them funded. How wonderful is that? That is very rare. A lot of people go into incubators and accelerators don't get any funding, but she's amazing. She's done that. And she has over 15 years experience in the corporate. She quit in 2003. She worked for McKinsey Company. And she started her own company, Afrofusion Marketing. She's worked on amazing campaigns, including the famous one with the tagline, reduce, reuse, recycle. Yeah. Reduce, reuse, recycle. It's catchy. And she's won numerous awards, including the Multi-Choice VUCA Award. And she's a member of the Golden Key at Wits University. Other recipients of that Golden Key are Trevor Manuel and Archbishop Desmond Tutu. That's how amazing today's guest is. Ladies and gentlemen, get on your feet. Let's a big round of applause to Antoinette Prophy.
Thank you, Sandra. What an introduction.
Yeah, thank you very
You
much.
should come with me on dates.
Yeah. I'll be happy to be a wingman. Absolutely. But you are amazing like that.
Oh,
I'd
thanks,
actually,
Andres.
if I were you, I'd change my surname to Trophy.
Oh. Thanks,
Great.
Andres.
Welcome to Startup Grind.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Thanks for recognizing the black girl magic, right? And not just recognizing it, but honoring it and featuring not just me, the village is here as well. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Andres.
Awesome. And, tell us about yourself. Like, where were you born and what kind of kid were you?
Really? Big sister to 4 siblings, born in Joburg. So Joburg runs in my veins. It was really difficult to settle into Cape Town. Really, really difficult. Because I'm a true Joburger.
Yeah.
I was a nerd of note.
Okay.
I was constantly reading or trying to solve for X. I never
Yeah.
solved for X, but I
Yeah.
tried.
You're trying to find X in some paper.
Yeah.
Just circle it.
Yeah, I was a loner of note, so I'd always be in the corner and let my siblings just run the show and do their thing.
See.
Yeah.
And was all that in Joburg? Or-
All of it in Joburg.
Okay, which school
Yeah.
did you go to?
Primary school was Stonebridge Secondary. I was a stone throw from home, born to education from sub A. I was sub A, guys. I come from the sub A generation.
Tell us about the products you used. 'Cause
Sub A to matric. I went to an Indian high school, and that was, I think for me, probably the start to being open to or exposed to other cultures, just doing things differently. I think from grade 4, I started doing ballet.
Okay.
And this was during apartheid. Our ballet teacher used to drive. She was a white teacher. She used to drive from Bedford View to our school to come and teach us.
Wow.
And she had to duck and dive bullets. It was hectic. It was really during the hectic time. And I honor her for doing that because I think that too, a friend of mine asked me years ago, what was that turning point in your life where you didn't become a quintessential colored girl growing up in a colored community? And I think it was that. It was probably doing ballet, being taken out of our school environment into a different environment, and just being exposed to different things. I mean, I was on TV when I was 7 years old,
Oh, wow.
doing a ballet operetta as a bear. And it was a no jacket required. I don't know if anyone remembers no jacket required. Yeah, that's years ago.
Go look it up. It should be on YouTube somewhere.
Yeah, so
brilliant.
that was probably the turning point. And I also thank our principal from my primary school for having the foresight to understand that kids need more than just academics. He brought in sport. I played netball as well. I did ballet. And I was an academic. I was top of my class most of the years
Oh, fantastic.
at school. So when I matriculated and couldn't go to university, it broke my heart. But then I started at F&B as a teller.
Okay.
At the age of 18. That was my first job. And my second job was, from there I decided, I really want to become a CA. So I decided I needed more money in order to put myself through university, through UNISA, applied to Airports Company, and I made the announcements at the airport. So if you heard, all passengers are reminded not to leave your baggage unattended. All unattended baggage will be removed from the terminal building. That was me.
Oh, really? Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, good. Now that explains why I love airports so much. It's your voice.
Yeah.
Oh, brilliant. And then after that, how did your career progress? Like,
Yeah, so studied through UNISA. Eventually, I was at JHI as a PA, still studying, and a friend of mine, during the mass exodus where everyone was heading out to Australia, she was one of those people, and as she was heading out the office, she was like, oh, these guys at McKinsey are looking for people, just apply. And I was like, no, I wasn't even looking or anything. And they had a referral program that was running, and they were piloting this referral program. And then somebody else came to me and said, why don't you apply to McKinsey? And I was like, oh, okay, 2 people in a row, maybe I should do this thing, which I did. After a very rigorous interview process, I got into McKinsey, and I was there for 3 years. And I think that was the other turning point in my life. All of a sudden, here's this colored girl from Eden Park, surrounded by PhDs from Harvard, MBAs from Stanford, a boyfriend that went to Stanford and did his MBA, me. Like me, this colored girl. I was like, ah. So there I was in this amazing environment, but it's one of those environments where it's up or out. And I think the entrepreneurial bug bit me at the end of November 2003. I came to a point where I was like, what's next for me? I don't have a husband. I don't have kids. No pot plant. No debt at the time.
Cats,
no
dogs.
dog. No cat. So let me go and try and do this entrepreneurial thing. And I called my mums, November 2003, and I said, Mums, now remember, me being at McKinsey was the be-all and end-all. Mum expected me to call and say I'm getting married and I'm having babies. That was the next step for her. So I call her and I say, Mums, I have decided to start my own business. I'm not calling to ask for permission. I'm calling to ask if I can move back home.
FYI.
And that's where I started Afrofusion in my mother's lounge with 200 Rand and a laptop.
Wow.
Yeah.
And
and a pocket full of dreams, right? Yeah. As we do.
how did you move from that? Because a lot of people say, oh, I've got this idea, I want to run a business, but I don't have money. And then you start like, what do you need the money for? And then,
Exactly.
oh, I need money for marketing and for rent, and you mention all these big things. Like you break it down to what you really need it for. So you started with 200 grand. So how did you make it happen?
And Sandra's, for me, being able to grow Afrofusion from 200 Rand and a laptop in my mother's lounge to expanding it a couple of years later to East Africa, having offices in Uganda and Kenya and Joburg, with no government funding, no sugar daddy, no rich
No
daddy,
blesser?
no blesser, no struggle daddy, no government funding, was really just me saying to myself, I'm going to plow everything that I have, not just my physical energy into this business, but every cent that I have. I mean, in 2008, I became a shareholder in Mercedes-Benz.
Oh, wow.
And the next thing to do then is to buy an SLK, right? And I got to that crossroad where I could either buy I could buy an SLK, and I needed a new car, but I decided to buy a Getz. And a lot of people ask me, how did you make that decision? Because what was important for me at that point was the impact on this continent far outweighed driving an SLK. My work and what I wanted to do with the agency far outweighed what I wanted to do with the business. And so I just kept on plowing back. So from my mother's lounge, found office space in Rivonia, Sandton, a co-working space. And then from there, grew it. I mean, before I liquidated it, I had 60 people working for me. It was hard. Woo! Woo. Yeah, having 60 people on your payroll is no child's play. No child's play at all. So, but it really just took me being focused, one, and it took me taking the profits that was coming into the business and plowing it back and staying focused on the goal. So the expansion to East Africa, Uganda and Kenya was not easy, right? But I think Cape Town is probably way more difficult than those two countries.
Tell us about
So
that.
really, like I tip my hat to the entrepreneurs from Cape Town. Like really, guys, really, I tip my hat to you guys. This place is not easy. Cape Town is not an easy place to do business in. It is extremely closed. Also for me, coming from Joburg, I said to someone in the lift earlier on today, what I love about Cape Town is that Cape Townians love life. I think Joburgers do life, but Cape Townians have a deep love for life, and I appreciate that. But when you're coming from a place like Joburg where you do life, you want to get things done. Can we get things done? And it's, no, let's have another coffee. No, let's have another wine. Let's go play golf on Friday. And I'm like, no, I don't have time for golf. But I must say, now after a year of being here, I deeply also appreciate the fact that Cape Town is extremely relational, deeply relational. And I think for me, from a funding perspective, when you go out looking for funding, and I'm sure we'll come to that question, but it is understanding that you have to build relationships. In a place like Cape Town, maybe in Joburg you can land and pitch and get the money, honeys. But in Cape Town, you have to be prepared to build relationships if you're coming out the gate fresh.
I think it's actually pretty much everywhere. There's the same complaint that, for instance, like in Zambia or in Joburg or in Silicon Valley, is that if they don't know you, they won't give you one. But it's the same thing because it's based on trust, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so what would be some of the ways in which somebody can start getting known and getting introductions and being trusted?
I think you have to, one, understand yourself, right? And know, are you a relational person? If you're not a relational person, and you, like I used to be when I got here, then try and find someone that can help you build those relationships. And when you're in a room like this, work the room. But like you said earlier on, instead of asking what you can get, ask what you can give. Ask for that coffee and follow up on that coffee and build a relationship once the coffee happens, right? So I think in Cape Town especially, you need to think about the long game. I think in business, essentially, it's about the long game. And I think the mistake that most entrepreneurs make is that we think about December for most of us right now. It's about what's going to happen in December. You should have thought about this December, last December. And you should have raised the funds for this December, earlier this year or last December. So you need to think long term. And I think a lot of times what happens with entrepreneurs, especially when it comes to funding, is that you try and raise funds now for something that needs to happen in 3 months or next month. You're not thinking about your 12-month plan, your 18-month plan, and your 24-month plan, and then raising the funds for those plans. Having a plan. Have a plan.
And they say that raise money when you don't need it. It's like trying to borrow money when you absolutely need it. It's a bad time to borrow.
Absolutely.
Okay. And what led to you starting 88 business?
Post-liquidation. So ladies and guys, the one thing I want to encourage you to do, your business is not your baby. Your business is not your baby. When I liquidated my ad agency that I'd spent 12 years working on, it broke me. It broke me into a million pieces, and I had to literally, not literally, but I had to scrape myself off the floor, and thank God I'm not Humpty Dumpty. I could actually get back together. But when you treat your business like a baby, it is difficult, one, to exit. It is too devastating when you need to liquidate. So during that devastation period, post-liquidation, I asked myself, what is next for me? And I actually flew off to Mauritius. I've got some friends that are doing business there, and I've always wanted to run a continental business. Went to Mauritius. So what I did was I packed up my house, called my mom again, and said, Mums, I'm going to come and spend some time with you because I'm off to Mauritius in a couple of weeks. I'm going to go and set up a business there. And my mom is just like, okay, Anto. Okay. So I spent some time with her, flew off to Mauritius. But when I landed, it just didn't fit. Now, I had traveled to Burundi. I'd been in Tanzania. I flew to India and spent a month in India, and that didn't fit. So when I landed in Mauritius, it was that same feeling that I had in India. It just didn't fit. But I kept pushing, and eventually I just said, no, okay, let me let this go. I bought flip-flops and a sarong, and I chilled. Because I landed in Mauritius in my heels and my pencil skirt. I was ready to do this thing, right? Flew back to Joburg, and before I left for Mauritius, I took my baby sister out to lunch, and we had Ubered. She's quintessential millennial. She's 17 years younger than me. So she was showing me how to selfie. What's my good side? What is not my good side? So we both ran out of battery. We couldn't Uber back home. Oh. And so as we were trying to figure out what to do, I said to her, wouldn't it be cool if our handbags could charge our phones? So when I flew back from Mauritius, on the flight, I decided, let me come to Cape Town to start this handbag business. On the 6th of June, we landed, and I came here to start a handbag business. Never in my wildest dreams did I think I'd be running an accelerator program for women entrepreneurs. But coming here, trying to put things in place to get the handbag business done, and it just wasn't going in, nothing was going according to plan. And I was tired. I was exhausted. I could not take another thing not going according to plan. So I said to my baby sister, okay, I think maybe we go back to Joburg. And she's like, yes, I've started a new relationship anyway, so I'm going back to my man. So she went back. And as I was booking our tickets to go back home, I just decided to stay. And so I had a very introspective 2 months, June and July, where I just asked myself a whole bunch of questions. And I healed, because I needed to heal from the liquidation. And during that process, I decided, let me help other women entrepreneurs not make the mistakes that I made. And so in August, that's where the 88 Business Collective was born. It was me deciding to help other women entrepreneurs not make the same mistakes. and to create an environment in a community, because there I was post-liquidation, finding myself alone, finding myself trying to figure my next out alone, and there's no one to pick up the phone to, there's no community that I can call and say, I'm still entrepreneurial. The fact that I've liquidated doesn't make me less entrepreneurial. What do I do? Where do I go? I'm trying to start this handbag business. There's no place to go. So I decided, let me, as part of the collective, not just create a space for women entrepreneurs to not make the mistakes I made, but to give them a community and a support system, a real support system that will help them take their businesses to that next level.
Oh, wow.
And that's where it was born. And then it was still very conceptual. I had had a board of advisors. I had Deloitte come into my business in 2008. I was not ready for Deloitte to be in my business, to like literally be in my business, right? And I remember that process, though, was valuable because they had advised me not to acquire a bigger ad agency. I decided to go against that advice, went on an acquisition strategy that would have had Afrofusion just turn into this beast of note. And after about 10 months, I was only 28 years old at this point, right? I think the sellers looked at me and they were like, seriously? Seriously? Are you seriously going to get 10 million to buy this business? And I think they just didn't believe that I was able to raise the money, and so they pulled out. And I lost 2 million from that deal. And that was my first big failure in the business. I had to close our Durban office. And it really cut me deep, but not as badly as the liquidation.
Can you tell us more about that liquidation? I think most of the lessons come from mistakes.
Yeah.
And then it's easier to share successes, and especially when entrepreneurs meet each other, we're all struggling, but we put up a front.
Yeah.
How's business? Good.
And that's the other thing I love about the collective is, and the ladies will tell you, that it's a space to be real. Because the one thing I found was, over the years, I had to pretend to be fine. I've just lost 2 million. How can I be fine? Right? But I had to pretend my way through that in order to move on.
Yeah.
And so that was my first big failure. And then there was the East African expansion from 2010 to 2013. That failed. I went back to Joburg with my tail between my legs.
What failed? So, for instance, that deal with Deloitte, what exactly failed? So that I could learn from you and say,
Sure.
okay, when I'm in that situation, I
So-
shouldn't do this or look out for this and that.
So the acquisition strategy, one, I should never have embarked on that simply because I wasn't ready. So Deloitte was my board of advisors. And they said to me at one of our quarterly meetings, Anto, we don't think you're ready. I was stubborn and I decided I'm going to do it anyway. So I embarked on the acquisition strategy, put everything in place. We were packing up our office to move into these new big offices, and the sellers just pulled out, because they did not believe that I was able to raise the 10 million that was needed to close the deal. And I'd already plowed 2 million into it to make it possible.
So you had paid, who did you pay? Like
The lawyers, the
and all the
transactional
other-
advisors,
that
a
were gonna help you with the
deposit on,
acquisitions.
yeah.
Oh, okay, and
Yeah.
the new office space and all the type of stuff.
Beautiful sunglasses.
It would have been
Beautiful office
because
space.
you gave up there, so okay, so I see.
Yeah.
Okay, and then with the expansion, what were some of the things that didn't go right and you learned from?
And I was chatting to Renelle the other day, and I said to her, every opportunity that comes your way is not meant for you. So I had always wanted to have a continental footprint. I've got this huge tattoo of the continent on my back. That's how much I love this continent. I love this country. I just love this place, right? So I've always wanted to have a continental footprint. So and this was not even in the plans. So when the Uganda opportunity knocked on my door, we were not ready for that expansion. I went to Uganda for a week, landed, and came back 2 years later.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I appointed an MD, came back, appointed an MD for the Joburg office, tried to manage that process via Skype, the whole handover, because this opportunity that had come and presented itself with Africa's youngest billionaire was just this thing that I'd been waiting for all these years to have this continental footprint. But instead of sitting down with Africa's youngest billionaire and saying, it's not time yet, I will give you a call in 12 months or 24 months when I've set up the office in a way that it can manage this expansion. So the lesson out of that is every opportunity that comes your way is possibly not meant for you. But if you have a plan, and so the ladies will tell you, I'm constantly harping on having a plan because of this experience. You need to have a plan. So if Ashish came to me and I had a plan in place that spoke to Uganda being part of the expansion, then yes, the timing would have been fine. But I didn't have a plan. I was just rolling from one assignment or engagement with clients to the next, to the next. We were making money, millions, 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 and you just think that, okay, we're fine, we're fine. So also don't allow monetary wellness in your business to lull you into thinking that you're okay, because it can be temporary unless you have a plan. You need to have a plan in place. So now, for instance, there's an opportunity that came earlier this year, a couple of weeks ago, and I said no to it, and it speaks to continental expansion. I said no because it's not part of my plan. And I can say no now because, one, I'm not chasing money anymore. And so, yes, part of that whole East African expansion was definitely chasing after money, right? So now that I'm not chasing anymore, I can easily say, no, this doesn't fit into my plan. When I'm ready next year, I will pick up the phone, call and ask, is this opportunity still available?
Fantastic. Wow, that's excellent. And then in 88 Business Collective, when you're getting entrepreneurs in, what do you look for? How did you select the entrepreneurs that got in?
So we opened applications in April, and we had over 200 applicants, but only about, I think, 54 out of those met our criteria. And our criteria was basic: 2+ years in business, Western Cape based, and privately owned. It was just that. And out of the 200, 54 met the criteria, and this is the beauty for me of the collective. It's not just the ladies sitting here, but it's my board of advisors, it is our sponsors, and it's really, I think for me, a dynamic ecosystem. It's a dynamic community of entrepreneurs by entrepreneurs. So when we shortlisted the 54, I sat out of the pitch days because I'd met some of the ladies before and I didn't want to be biased. So I got a panel. Lalemba was actually part of the panel of the second day. And they picked the 12 ladies that's on the program now. Yeah. After, obviously, deliberation, and the one thing that I asked for as part of the criteria was they need to be collaborative, because the 88 Business Collective is all about collaboration. It is growth through collaboration. So we have 2 ladies in construction, 2 in engineering, we have a quantity surveyor, and if you put those women together, they can become the next generation of Group 5. So for me, the next generation of corporates that will be birthed out of, be it the Western Cape or SA as a whole, will be corporates or entrepreneurs, startups that are collaborative. I've said this before. I just think the days of competing like animals are over. We need to stop competing with each other like animals. And we need to come back to our humanity, I think especially as Africans, and I don't care if you were born in Cape Town, if you were born in Morocco, if you were born in Egypt, there's an essence about being African, Sandras, that I've felt when I landed in Burundi, I felt when I was in Uganda, I felt when I was in Kenya. We are collaborative by nature, and I think what messes us up is this dog-eat-dog. It is this shark tanks and dragons' dens and chasing mythical animals like unicorns. It's not, I mean, can we stop, right? I think what we need to do is to collaborate more. What we need, and when Stembile yesterday said that she is now collaborating with one of her competitors, I said, can I pick up my stuff? My work here is done. And she's part of the program. So that's what we need to do. We need to start collaborating more. So even when we come into rooms like this, instead of looking at someone as your competitor, look at how you can work together so that we can start working towards the next generation of corporates.
That's excellent, because a lot of entrepreneurs struggling because they are all just on their own.
Exactly.
So they go to entrepreneurship gatherings all looking for business from each other, but instead of thinking, how can we collaborate and build something bigger?
Exactly.
That's brilliant. Before I ask my next question, can we have the lights on, please? I can't see you.
Yeah.
We can't see you. Could you have the lights a little bit on? The name 88 Business Collective.
So when I conceptualized the program, I wanted to give the women entrepreneurs.
There you are.
Yay! I wanted to give the women entrepreneurs the opportunity to explore infinite opportunities. Because again, just back to what you said now, a lot of times we get so insular, and it's my life is just here, and it's just what I'm doing here. So I wanted them to look up and look at the possibility for Janine, who's into wine, to export to Nigeria. For Precious, who does African hair care products, to look at exporting. And not to just sell in her community around her. So it's the infinity sign, just doubled. So infinite opportunities.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Great. We're going to take questions from the audience. And next question for you, while waiting for that. If you were Premier of the Western Cape.
Are you seeing things?
Oh, yeah?
Have you got a crystal ball?
I'm a prophet. Give me money. Oh, yeah? Oh, cool. That's excellent. So tell me, Madam Premier, what would you do for the Western Cape if you were in charge?
You know, I had such a beautiful meeting yesterday morning. So, again, already planning for possibly third quarter 2018 that'll lead into 2019. And it is stimulating the manufacturing sector and high-tech manufacturing, right? I think if we look at the Toys R Us's of the world and the Stutterfits of the world, we're losing a lot of jobs. And I think if you've been part of the Silicon Cape events, you would remember that I've said when I was nominated as the diversity and inclusion head that reskilling for me is important. So I would love to see 50-year-olds, 60-year-olds learning to code. I would love to see young people setting up their own manufacturing plants, or having an incubation space where they can manufacture collaboratively their first 100 products, and if the first 100 products are out, then you go out on your own and you make it happen even further. So I definitely stimulate manufacturing and high-tech manufacturing, but tied to that, have a reskilling program where we bring our communities, old, young, into the fourth industrial revolution. It's not waiting for us to catch up. We are lagging behind. If I look at what the likes of Rwanda is doing from a tech perspective, we are seriously lagging behind. I mean, in Kenya, I could get into a matutu and actually have high-speed Wi-Fi in a taxi, a kumbi,
Yes,
a quantum.
Yes. That's right.
You know, so, and we can't. So, and I think SA is obviously a highly regulated, and it impedes growth. But yeah, I'd focus mainly on reskilling and bringing our communities into the fourth industrial revolution tied to manufacturing.
Great.
Thank you for seeing that in my future, though.
Awesome. No, I totally
Thank
see
you.
it. I think you will
Thank
do a
you.
good job. You should actually be president. I'll take a question. There's a question at the back there.
Hi. Kudos to you to leaving the security of McKinsey in 2003. That's not easy, and it's very brave.
Thank
and
you.
it's wonderful to see the path you've led. I have an NGO that funds girls' clubs in Southern Africa, and what we want to do is help provide more possibilities for a new path in life and more opportunity. I was wondering what advice you might have for whether you can teach, get that entrepreneurial fire in people, teach initiative, or do you really feel that's kind of born in one? Because that's one of our biggest, one of our ambitions and one of our biggest challenges is how do you get that fire going?
I sincerely believe that entrepreneurs are born and then panel beat it. And I think maybe in your case, when you do recognize someone that is innately a problem solver, because that's what entrepreneurs do, we problem solve. There's no way that I can sit in a room and there's a problem and I'm not trying to solve it. That's how I know that I'm entrepreneurial. So I think when you come across kids or young people that are innately problem solvers, they're taking things apart and putting it back together, that's the entrepreneur in the room. Not everybody needs to be entrepreneurial. Heaven knows we need people to work for us, right? And I think when you spot that entrepreneurial spirit, it needs to be nurtured. But don't force someone into an entrepreneurial box when they're not meant to. And I've had some discussions earlier this week with someone, and I said to him, I don't think that you are entrepreneurial, so prove me wrong. Do this for me. And I've been chatting to him for a while, and I said to him, do this for me. The next time you call me to tell me that you've closed a deal without funding. That's how I'm going to know that you're entrepreneurial. Because for me, the mark of a true entrepreneur is me being able to take you from Cape Town, put you in Kenya with no money, nothing, and in 2 weeks' time, you've made money. In 2 weeks' time, you've figured out how to make money, especially in other African countries where the opportunities are endless, right? That's the mark of a true entrepreneur. So I think, too, maybe what SA is doing at the moment is trying to turn everybody into an entrepreneur. You an entrepreneur, you an entrepreneur, everybody's... let's not. I think what we need to do is to nurture people's talent, spot it, and just nurture and push it into the right direction.
Great. I like that answer. I think I'm going to do a compilation of different speakers' answers to that question, because even Hannes, who I had at the last event, said something similar, and another guy said something similar. Today I was watching Steve Blank say something similar, that entrepreneurs are much closer to artists, and not everybody's an artist. Because there'll be moments when you will just be staring at a blank wall and you don't know what to do. And similarly with entrepreneurs, there are moments when you're not making money. So it's like those crazy people can just go on, and everybody say, look, but this is not working. But you
My mom.
and finally it might work or might not, but it's not guaranteed that it works. So I agree with you. Next, any other questions? Yes, a question here.
Hi. Hello. Hello. It's almost in the back of that question, but a little bit spun. I think entrepreneurs, by definition, have a bit of control issues somewhere along the line. How did you, along that path, relinquish some of the control? I listened to you say 60 people on your payroll. It's not your baby. It's not. How do you let go of that control? How do you walk away from somebody with your product, whatever it is, and say, do it, I'm going to the next one, and I'm going to do that?
I think that happens when you realize that what you're working on is bigger than you. Once you get to that point where you understand innately that Afrofusion is bigger than Anto, the 88 Business Collective is way bigger than me. So anything could happen to me today, and the collective will continue because there's a board in place. They've met their board of advisors. it will continue because it's way bigger than me. So trying to hang on to it and trying to control it means that it can only stay this small, it can only stay here. And that's not realistic. I think most of us want to scale up. And it's not easy to, I am a control freak, maybe that's why I'm single. I am a little bit of a control freak, but I've had to learn over the years that in order for me to scale up, and I think it was the East African expansion, having 3 offices in 3 countries, that helped me to let go. So by the time I got back and had 60 people working for me, it was easier to just let people do what they do. And then surround yourself with people that know more experienced people, and let them get on with it. And I think the mistake that most of us make is that we try and employ people that we can control, that we can tell what to do. And that's a mistake. You need to employ people that know more than you, that know better, so that you can leave them to get on with it.
A follow-on question to that is that now you find the good people. How do you afford them? That's it. Like, whoa, you're a genius. I want you in my business.
So I think it comes back to planning, right? So if I know that, so this is the other mistake a lot of us make, is the minute you start making money in your business, you employ a PA. Because you want people to say, my PA will call you. Yeah. So for instance, I know when it comes to finance management, I need help. I need someone to help me manage my finances. So I'm not going to employ a PA. I'm going to employ a finance manager. So for now, I'm going to outsource the finance management, but I am working on a revenue model that needs to ensure that in 6 months' time, I have enough funds available to employ a finance manager that's way more experienced than my accountant at the moment. So how you get around that is, again, planning. Planning that in 6 months' time, I want a finance manager to step into my space. How am I going to get there? We need to up sales, so we need to set targets. So for this week, Precious needs to sell 20 no. 20 products in order for us to be able to employ a finance manager in 6 months. So it comes back to planning. You can't just roll from one day to the next.
Absolutely. Great. Thank you. Yes.
We're in the naughty corner at the back. Hi. My name is Catherine, and I want to firstly applaud you for your honesty and vulnerability. That's really great. I guess my question to you, because I don't have to ask this of myself. I know what keeps me up at night, but what keeps you up at night? And this could be anything, right? You could be concerned that you'll go grey at 20. I don't know. What keeps you up?
It is, again, the continent. It is ensuring that when I'm old and grey someday and sitting on my stoop somewhere, I want to be able to look back and go, I have done the most to ensure that we create jobs from Cape to Cairo. I've done the most to ensure that this continent participates, not sits on the sidelines, but actively participates in the 4th industrial revolution. That's what keeps me up.
Brilliant.
Hi, so when you started your first, can you hear me? Okay, so when you started your first company, you had 200 rand and you went back to your mom's aunt whatsoever. Like, what advice can you give yourself then, saying, "Look, I've resigned my job, I only have 200 rand right now, I don't know what I'm going to do next time." What advice would you give yourself if you look at yourself now? Like, what would you say to that adult?
I would say to my 26-year-old self, give yourself a soft landing. So instead of going out and partying every Thursday and spending my McKinsey money, save it. Save as much as you possibly can. Again, plan to exit McKinsey in 2 years. So in 2 years' time, have a savings account that's 100,000 or 200,000 or 6 times what I'm earning at the moment to be able to sustain myself in case nothing happens. Because I only got my first contract in September that year. So that was 9 months, it was giving birth. After 9 months, we got our first contract. And it was tough. Those first 9 months, it wasn't easy at all. There was nothing sexy about that time. So I definitely would say to anyone that is sitting in a corporate, no first Thursdays or Puza Thursdays, rather put that money away, save up some money so that when you exit, you've got a savings account. And so when things go wrong, you've got a soft landing. Because I used to plump, like just fall hard. Hard.
Thanks.
Hello. Okay, so you say that, sorry, I'm going to paraphrase and I'm sorry if I say it all wrong, but planning is very important to you and that you don't take up opportunity if it's not part of your plan. But has there ever been an opportunity that has come and how do you know, okay, sorry, that's my second question, but is there ever a time when opportunity comes where you're like, okay, now I'm going to have to adjust my plan because this is actually going to bring or change something or take your business into a direction that like that needs to go, but you didn't foresee the plan. Is that, and then how do you recognize that that's actually something that you have to say yes to, or you know, when you say yes to it, when you say no to it, even though you have a plan, like, I don't know if I'm expressing myself correctly, or
Yeah.
Okay,
So I think if I look at the East African expansion, right, that changed my business completely. Because one, I wasn't there in the Joburg office. Two, I had appointed an MD, fantastic guy, but he just wasn't able to take care of the business the way that I did. So the fact that I said yes to that opportunity changed my business. So I was flowing with somebody else's need for me, with one person's need for me, right? And as much as that opportunity would have given us a footprint in 16 African countries, India and Dubai, it was taking my business into Ashish's direction, not Anto's direction. So if the opportunity comes and it speaks to where you want to be as the entrepreneur. So maybe you thought you're going to be there in 5 years' time or 6 years' time, and the opportunity presents itself now, but it's part of what you want to do anyway. It's part of where you see yourself anyway. Then I'd say yes, absolutely go for it.
Great, and that speaks to funding as well, right? That you get, there is good money and also bad money that take you off your mission.
Yeah. And there's nothing worse than being distracted. Oh, yeah. And again, if I could do it over again, I probably would expand to East Africa again, because it was an incredible opportunity. It was probably my street MBA. I learned so much about business. I learned so much about myself, but it was definitely not good for my business.
Right.
Yeah, so, and even clients. So it might not necessarily be funding, but some clients are like the Tasmanian devil, hey?
Yes.
They can ruin your business.
Yes.
They can ruin your business. So you have to be careful, and you have to have boundaries. You have to. So the one thing I wanted to say today is you need to have an understanding of yourself as an entrepreneur. Know who you are. Know what you want, especially when it comes to funding. You need to know what you want. So the ladies will tell you, over the 3 months on the boot camp, we help them understand their why. Why are you in business? Why are you doing this? So you've been doing it for 7 years, you've been doing it for 9 years. Why? Why are you doing this? And once you have a clear understanding of your why, and you have a clear understanding of you, and then you understand, what are my funding needs? Do I need funding? If I need funding, do I want equity? Because I'm actually tired. I want somebody in here that's going to help me run this. So I'm looking for an equity partner. Or is it, I need to, there's this issue in the business that needs some money. I actually just need a loan to sort this out. So you need to understand what it is that you want. And then you put together your investment deck, investor deck, and then you prepare and you rehearse. They will tell you over and over, have to get comfortable with your numbers. Know your numbers. And it took us 3 months to prepare for the process of 1st September, where we raised 2 million, over 2 million in funding. But that was 3 months of preparation. 3 months of preparing pitches, 3 months of understanding your why, 3 months for them, and they'll tell you of getting comfortable with their numbers. This is a funding pitch, different to a client pitch, different to a stakeholder pitch. A funding pitch is about the numbers. Yes, you don't have to be a CA, but you have to know your numbers. Because the investors are going to ask you about what? Your numbers. And I think a lot of us, I know I did. I loved the advertising space when I started out, the whole creative space, and from concept to TV ads, to billboards, to radio. I loved that whole process. And then I started employing, and we moved into offices, and I was like, oh, okay, this is more than just the love, eh? I need to pay salaries, I need to pay rent. This just got real. So it's so important to understand yourself. Understand who you are. If you're not a finance person, get help. Get help. But you need to know your numbers. So outsourcing, because your numbers and your finance unit or your finances, that's the heartbeat of your business. And you cannot outsource your heartbeat to an accountant and check in with him every quarter by handing him slips and saying, here you go, please can I have my management accounts back? No, you need to know your numbers and get comfortable, I think, because it's moving from being an entrepreneur to a business person. You need to become a business person. So you know your numbers. You know that you have to sell 20 units today. If we don't sell 20 units today, we're not going to make our targets for the end of the month. And it might sound pedestrian, but a lot of people don't get this because we get so caught up in the passion and the love for what we do that we forget to focus on our numbers. So by the time you get in front of investors, you're fumbling, you don't know what you're saying, they're asking you about your numbers. And that was me with the acquisition strategy. In 2008, when the transactional advisors asked me about our numbers, I was like, yes, the accountant, he'll tell you. And that wasn't good enough. I left that meeting feeling like, oh my word, I actually just disappointed myself. How can I not know my numbers? And here I am trying to acquire a bigger ad agency with 10 million. And I'm stepping into a space not knowing my numbers, and that's where the change came for me, where I know our numbers. And yes, at this point in the 88 Business Collective, it's not big, but we'll get there.
Great. Thank you very much. I'm sure that there are lots of questions in the audience, but we can leave those for the networking. We have another hour of food and or drinks. And a big hand, please, for... And Antoinette came with some of the entrepreneurs from 88 Business Collective. I think they all can teach you something.